I know you're gonna dig this.
And now, heard across the world, it's time for Third and One with your host, Ryan Hyde.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Third and One. Today's guest is former world kickboxing superweight amateur champion and a friend of mine, Sandy Pembroke. How's it going today, Sandy?
Fantastic, man. Thrilled to chat again.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. It's been a while. I mean, we chat online here and there, and this is something new that I started doing. And when I started doing podcasting, I realized that I might venture out past football, and a name that came into my head when I decided that was Sandy Pembroke. And I thought it would be neat to get your story across onto here and kind of tell everybody, you know, what you've been up to, what you've been through, and where you're going to next. And, yeah. So
thanks, man. Ryan, I've listened to some of your podcasts and I love them, and everyone's always pretty happy. You're just such a very upfront, sort of genuinely sort of friendly fella. Plus intelligent, plus a sports fan, and everybody kind of gives you a big thank you for having them on your show. And I'm just going to be the exact same guy. Thank you. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Sandy. I appreciate that. That's kind of one of the things my girlfriend tells me is, I kind of put myself out there almost like to meet people. I mean, kind of like when I met you in Nanaimo, I was like, hey, there's Sandy Pembroke. I'm gonna talk to Sandy, and it went from there. The same thing with Don as well. I mean, there's Don, and I said, hey, it's Don Andrews. That's the voice of the BC Lions. He's, you know, and it goes from there. So it's kind of helps me out. So,
were you working with the fight promotion, Ryan, or just friends of? Like, how did you and I end up meeting? Like, what were you doing? It was weigh-in time, wasn't it? Like, it was weigh-in day, fly-in day, or was it fight?
It was fight day. It was after the event that I started talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind of cool. So I was in need of a sport to go and watch. I didn't know anybody. I hadn't met Terry or anything like that. And I saw that Terry was putting on an event, and I bought tickets. And then I kind of did my I guess research on who was fighting.
Yep.
Kind of the draw to me actually was Deshaun Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And the draw was that being Manny Pacquiao's sparring partner.
Yeah.
He had done big things in his career, and I thought, hey, I mean, I'm gonna message this guy and talk to him. You know, what's up? Social media is the key.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Deshaun a little bit here and there. His first event in Nanaimo. We kind of kept talking, and next thing you know, for the second event in Nanaimo, he tags me in a picture saying that I was gonna walk him out to the ring, which was crazy, and I had no idea. I actually worked a night shift. And I got up that morning, I went to bed that morning. I got up that afternoon. It was a Friday. A buddy of mine said, holy shit, go on Facebook. You're walking a boxer out to the ring or some, you know, just no idea. So it just kind of blew me away, right? Yeah. And it went from there. So
is that what sucked you into the, like, where you love sport? I get it. You love football. We can talk about my terrible football background at some point too, if you want. But is that what really kind of went, now I really like this stuff?
That's what got me into boxing and all that. I mean, now I know Terry Strawson, I know you, I talked to Deshaun, I talked to Don, and
all great guys. I don't know Deshaun, we've done like the briefest of pleasantries on Facebook kind of thing. And were we on the same card? Was he there? We had some brief things that night, but he was kind of the big show and I was kind of the nobody. So I just kind of left him alone. But I can't remember. We bumped into each other a couple times and had a really nice feel for him, you know, kind of like, you know, that's a good dude kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I've got a lot of respect for Deshaun. Really polite man. And what an athlete. I've seen some of his training videos on YouTube, and I was just like, holy crap, like he's
Well, now that you
beyond.
mentioned it, and you know, he's a guy that had that kind of two sport career and like successful in two, blew my mind because it's top of the food chain in two different world professional sports. I mean, that's a dude.
That's saying something, right? For sure.
Yeah.
So one thing that got me was going to that event in Nanaimo and then going into the dressing room with Deshaun and then seeing a man prepare to go to war and everything that's involved in that. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, holy shit, like he's punching the wall. He's, you know, getting the gloves put on, the tape put on, you know, going through the motions. And I didn't even want to take a picture of the guy, honestly, because I didn't want to get into his head place and like fuck him up or get yelled at, be like, hey, you know, no pictures in here, whatever. It was crazy. And then, you know, somebody comes in, it wasn't Terry, but it was somebody, said, okay, we're ready to go. Let's go. We're walking Deshaun out to the ring. And there it was. And it was a trip. It was quite an experience. It's something I'll never forget.
It's pretty intense because you would have felt the same energy and almost been more nervous than him because he knows what he's going through, but you're seeing it fresh for the first time.
Exactly. And I remember being in the ring and I'm standing across from Deshaun's opponent who starts looking at me. So I'm kind of giving this guy the stink eye a little bit, right? In the middle of the ring, I'm like,
he's mean mugging
like,
you.
You know, like, right? Like, yeah. And it was fun and funny. And I really enjoyed it. It was really neat. So
beautiful, man. Yep. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you had done that. So that's pretty exciting.
That was exciting. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So what got you into kickboxing?
So I had a bit of a love, but I wouldn't say like a deep understanding of the sport of boxing, but it's always a great question. I'm an identical twin.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
You know that. Yeah. So we did a lot of, you know, sparring growing up. And I can get into that at another point, or if it comes back to that. But like, remember Dad having some boxing gloves for us when we were like 2 years old, 3, 4, and then them being taken away because there was blood and and you know, Mom's very anti-violent and yada yada. And a few times throughout our lives, like Dad trying to get 2 rambunctious, like very physical, mirror image sparring partners
yeah.
To let some of that aggression out, but then, you know, not continually fixing drywall because you don't have a ring in a house, you have drywall and then you go through it. So, you know, you're getting backed up against the ropes of the drywall, and then your head's going, shoulders going. And, you know, do you have kids or anything? Or
yeah, I've got a 20-year-old daughter. Yeah.
Did you say 20-year-old daughter?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I had her. I think I was 21, anyways. Yeah.
Oh, wild. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I love chats like this, man. It's fantastic to just, you know, learn all these things about each other live.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like real life.
So I had the same kind of experiences, but it was with a sister that was 6 years older than I. Right. And shit got out of hand pretty easily over the TV remote, over who's fucking moving the wrong way, we would taunt each other, we would piss each other off. I mean, I'm not even lying right now. She knocked me out a good 5 times before I turned 12. We're talking like out cold. Like,
really?
I'm dead serious, man. And I'm adopted. And she is adopted. And when my adopted parents brought me home, all I did was cry, and my sister hated me. And
ouch.
Yeah, it went from there. We're not that close as adults, and it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, shit got serious. I mean, but you know what though? At the same time though, if she had an issue with a boy or something was going on, I was the first guy to defend her, right? I mean, I love her to pieces, and it is what it is. It's just a little shitty at times, but
yeah, You know, I mean, I hope for you, like I've got one brother that I don't speak to right now, and my twin and I have definitely had some world-ending fights, physical, or as we get older, we had to switch to more sort of destroying each other mentally because the physical, we were just both too good at it.
Yeah.
You know, and medical bills and teeth and stuff. It was just, yeah, I feel very badly for my parents and some of the stuff we put them through, whatever, you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, hopefully we can all sort of get past our upbringings at some point and mend fences, but you know, it takes two to do that. So you might want to do it and she might not. I might want to do it and my brother doesn't, you know. So like I said, me and my twin are tight now, but me and the younger brother don't speak. So.
And I'm the same way with my sister right now. And I've tried. I've reached out a little bit. I guess her big gripe with me is I found my biological mama and dad. And so she had told me basically that I was tearing my family apart by finding my biological side. And I disagree, man. Yeah, I mean, we're only here on Earth once, and if you can do it, then do it and make the best of it. And it is what it is, you know. And yeah, it's unfortunate it came to that. The other side of that bothers me is my adopted parents, who I love to pieces. They put this family together, and they've let me venture out and find my biological family. That's fine, but it hurts me to know that their two kids that they plan on having to make a family can't get along, and that's all they want. You know, and that hurts me. So I'm the same way. I'm hoping one day we can make amends and figure it out for my parents' sake and go from there, right? So
yeah, sorry, man. We're gonna get real in this conversation tonight.
we are gonna get real. Apparently, yeah. It's all good, man. That's what it's for, right?
Man, I literally, Ryan, exact same thing. Like, there was a few big blowouts with my youngest brother. He's about 4 years younger. And my parents I moved back from BC. I used to live in the interior of BC for a few years, Kelowna and Kamloops. Had some retail stores in Vernon, Kelowna, Kamloops areas kind of thing. And anyway, something happened. The little brother came out to visit and, you know, chalk and cheese. We weren't good. And when I moved back a few years later, we didn't talk for a while, moved back, and my parents said, listen, can you just you're the older brother, be the adult, go swallow some pride and make it happen. And I did. And it worked out. Unfortunately, a little while later, whatever the time frame was, it ended again. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not suiting up again and putting my emotions in a place where, and just anybody that's listening to the podcast, we'll talk about beating the hell out of people in a second after we talk about our very manly feelings. I just decided that it was time to not do it this time. If he's just gonna continue the exact same behaviors and never change, I can't keep opening my heart or myself up for the disappointment of it, of the tragedy and the fight and the emotional violence again. Yeah. This is a good talk about boxing, right?
Yeah, we're out right off on the right track here, aren't we?
Good. Do we need to say something like very sporting and interesting quickly to keep people entertained, or are we just going to be the Phil? What is it, Phil Donahue or Dr. Phil show?
Yeah, we could be the Dr. Phil show.
My girlfriend just walked by. She has no interest in. It's like, it's hard to talk about boxing without knowing the boxer. I'm like, ooh, she's pretty smart. I'd keep her around.
Yeah, well, and exactly, you know, and this is the stuff we need to hear, right? Yeah. At least we're not going political, because we're not going there. We'll keep the politics out of this.
I'll have a couple more drinks and oh yeah, I have actually some personal stories about how one of Donald Trump's political appointees was involved in in the ending of my marriage, but we don't need to talk about that. Yeah, well, you know, people can stay tuned. We'll talk about that at the end.
Holy, okay, all right. So when you were growing up as a kid, did you play any other sports?
So, you know what? I have to give my dad major credit. For whatever reason, my mom is from Glace Bay, Nova Scotia. Three brothers, super sport nuts, like baseball and hockey. And all of their kids grew up super sports nuts. My mom was looking to date a man that didn't like sports, and she got my father. He's from Antigonish, Nova Scotia. This is that X ring, your Saint of X, St. Francis Xavier University.
Okay.
Anyway, Dad's from that town. A lot of people know about it. Definitely here on the East Coast, or on Terrible and East from there. It's pretty well known. It was McLean's #1 university for whatever. Anyway, it's a cool spot. It's one of those great little university towns, brick buildings, ivy, and all that kind of TV, American college kind of feel, like.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got to keep. We did talk just before we went live. You're in charge of structure and bringing me back to the point. The question, remember, was what were the other sports? And with all of that to say, my father, who was not into sports at all, and my mother, who wanted him because he wasn't, he ended up getting some books and coaching Mike and I from 4 until we were about 13 or 14 in hockey.
Nice.
That's literally awesome. Studying and like trying to learn the sport, right? I mean, I think we were like house league guys. We weren't competitive hockey players. It was, everybody gets to play kind of thing until the playoffs, and then the good kids play.
Yeah, I played house hockey too. Yeah, I know what that's all about. My dad didn't coach me, but took me to the games and was there as much as he could be to watch me play, and it was great. It was an awesome time. I played 8 years.
Nice.
Loved every second of it. I mean, there's nothing better. Now, I mean, you're a pro boxer. You might see this differently, but there's nothing better to me than to be on the ice with a puck. I mean, I played soccer. I hated running. I played baseball. I hated running. I never had a problem skating with a puck in practice. And then you're playing games, right? It was just amazing to me. Loved every second of it.
Huh. Do you still get on the skates, or do you toss puck around, or what?
No, I don't know if you heard the story with Don, but I had a really bad construction accident in 2001. I fell like 45 feet off a balcony, yada, yada, yada. I broke my femur. And so they put my femur back together. They put some hardware in there. They took it out a year after. But they basically said, if you play any contact sports and you get hit in the right place, you'll break your femur again. Yeah. So I sold my gear. But I mean, as an adult now, I'd love to play. I probably could. But
I mean, bones heal over years. They get much, much stronger and denser. So anyway, I'm not your doctor, but, take a look. I've got, I don't know if we talked about this, I've got some titanium in my neck now. Can you see the scar?
Yeah, I see the scar.
So, so for anybody that pays attention, C5, 6, and 7 are fused. So the neck doesn't go this way, so left and right as much, and up and down as much now. So.
And how'd you do that?
Getting paid to get punched and kicked in the head for 20 years.
Ouch.
And actually, Ryan, we can cycle back on this anytime. I feel like we need to talk about something that excites people and like about knocking people out and give them hope about the greatness of the sport. We don't want to turn people off and make them change the channel, but you're in charge.
No, and you know what? That in the same realm, that's kind of how I feel about hockey these days, and ice hockey. Mm-hmm. If I had a younger child who wanted to play ice hockey right now, or a contact sport, because of how big the players are, because of how fast the game is, and because of kids getting hurt and our knowledge about concussions and brain injuries, I can't say I'd be all that up to saying, okay, let's play. I'd definitely put my mind to it and think about things first. Things happen really quick,
That's a fast sport, high concussion rate. And then, like I said, we both got a lot of familiarity around the football game and CTE and all the head traumas, but hockey's just because of the speed and the velocity, it's rough. My positive spin on all that, Ryan, is I'm on the board of directors currently for Football Nova Scotia, so it's a volunteer position. The main goal is to help Nova Scotian youth pursue post-secondary education opportunities worldwide through the vehicle of football.
Wow.
Well, after having a couple of beers on a Friday night, I'm pretty glad I was able to say that properly.
Yeah, no, that came out really well. I got all of it. Yeah.
I may or may not continue in that role. There's a bit of chalk and cheese. I'm a sort of, my day job is a marketing consultant, sort of business management strategist kind of guy. And it's a government funded organization that has nowhere near enough money, and they're overstressed, and the people there that are paid and work there full time are just so busy, and there's so many demands. And then they've got all of the parents, all the, the hockey moms or the hockey dads that are, kind of have all these opinions. They've got to deal with them every single day, and it's competitive teams because we're trying to get kids built up so they can make a college or university team down in the States, or here in Nova Scotia. We send some guys to the NCAA Simon Fraser. That's still the only college in Canada that plays in the NCAA, right?
Yeah. I
So
believe so.
that's what we're doing, but it's egos, emotions. My kid is going to be the next Dion whatever, Wayne whatever, and you know what I'm saying. So and then I have no patience for that. I have no patience for ego, and I have no patience for low budget stuff and the slow pace of sort of government work. I need to see progression, and so hopefully I can continue to make some movements forward and help with the kids. And like that sport is really what pushed me into like being a member of making a university football team without playing in high school. Like I played tackle football with a bunch of guys on the weekends, but never played for a structured team. And then I was a big kid. I was about 340 pounds, never touched the steroids. I'm about 260 now. And I fought my first fight at 285, and I had to make 183.3 for a big fight in Munich, Germany in 2006. That was a kilogram fight, so whatever that 183.2, whatever that translates to. You're frozen on this. Oh no, you're not frozen.
No, I'm not. I'm here.
You have really good ability to be still.
Thanks, man.
We'll come back to that.
I've had that trait my whole life. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know.
I lost my train there.
You're talking about making weight in Munich.
Yeah, so I was just all over up and down the scale. Like this is me passing out on the radiator in the hotel and getting a 3rd-degree burn, waking up with the skin bubbled out to here, and the coach coming in and yelling at me because the room stinks. Can you see it? I don't know.
And the room stinks, and it's Sandy's flesh burning.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gross. Ugh.
Great fight. I actually, you know what? A good friend of mine just pulled out. I'm all Apple now, but he pulled out an old PC that had the fight on it, and he just pulled it off of a dead hard drive, and so I'm able to get that fight again this weekend. So I'll send that to you.
I'd love to see that. I want to see that. Yeah, for sure.
Great fight. So, but just go ahead.
Sorry, you had over 100 amateur kickboxing fights, correct?
So the way at one point I was sitting down with some friends, and it was we were trying to figure it out, and some coaches and stuff. So my first fight, like in the ring, organized, I think was 99 in Ottawa.
Okay. Excuse
me. And I fought like as often as possible, a lot of tournament stuff. So just like amateur boxing, back then before the CTE stuff came out, you could go and fight 2 or 3 times in a day, 2 or 3, 4 times in a weekend, or over a week if we're like flying over to like a world championships in like wherever, Europe or something. So you could fight very often, so you get your numbers up very quick.
Gotcha.
And in the boxing and the kickboxing, even MMA is a little bit different, but it's really about like your pedigree, or how good is this guy, is how many amateur fights has he had. The win-loss record is not really mentioned until you get to the professional leagues, and a lot of that is very much about the business of building a fighter. So in the amateur, how many fights can you get? An amateur boxer with 100 plus fights is that's the golden sort of whatever. Cubans, Russians, they really push them to get to those big numbers and that sort of stuff. And like, some of the great guys, like who's the Matrix guy there, close to 300 amateur fights before he went pro, Lomachenko.
Oh yeah.
Right. So anyway, so it's
close to 300.
Yeah, I think that's
holy cow.
Yeah, and you can Google this stuff and double check it, but like
yeah.
some of the really like building a fighter is about getting them a lot of amateur experience. Unlike what's the guy that just lost to Tyson Fury that kind of didn't go that route at all. He's just got the thunder of God, the death power in his right hand there. He's African American guy. Wilder. Is it Wilder? Fury, Wilder, was that?
Did they fight already?
Was it Wilder or the other one? I get the names mixed.
No, it was the other one. I can't even remember either.
Yeah.
I'm focused on this. And
yeah. No, we're good. So anyway, just the answer is I was lucky. One of the coaches for the amateur Canadian kickboxing team, we had some conversations very quickly and very honestly in the beginning. And he's like, if you want to do this seriously, you give me a lot of steps. Hey, do this. I need you to do this, this, and this. Make this weight, fight this. And they just brought me along really quickly. And the opportunities as a heavyweight are fantastic. Thanks, son. Oh. Why? Oh, sorry. Get a couple bruises and I'm pretty hot. And my girlfriend, who's just a saint, just brought me an ice pack to just no air conditioning here, and it's humid and 36 degrees. So
it's warm here right now too. Yeah, it's getting
shut up, BC.
I've got everything turned off right now for noise volumes. I've got all the windows closed so we can't hear my dog barking.
Oh, so you're roasting yourself?
I'm roasting myself right now. Yeah, I believe there's sweat dripping down my back.
Sorry, brother.
Just
I got the sleeveless on ice pack on my back now. Well, there we go. There's how the sausage is made. People have got the real show going. They know what's going on.
Yeah. So you changed to boxing at some point. What went off your head and said, "Hey, I want to be a boxer"?
I'll just drop some names. So John McMahon, he was a ex-military guy. He was my first real coach. So there was Aaron Ceballos had a thing called the Ottawa Fight Club. Honest to God, wow. After the movie, 1999. So I graduated the Saint of X thing in 98. I was about 285 then, and I'm like, I don't need to be 285 pounds anymore. Obviously don't need to be 300 pounds. Didn't do that great at football, made the team for a few years, but didn't go that far. Had some issues with some things, whatever.
Yeah.
And we all decided that perhaps I shouldn't do that anymore. Me and the coaches, or one coach particularly.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that. But I was looking for something to drop the weight and to give me that sporting sort of thing. And nothing had ever clicked for me after hockey. Like we can kind of go through that, whatever, but I'll answer the questions and we'll go back there if we need it. But I've literally just had a buddy. His name was Jeff Wiley, deceased now, but doesn't matter. Good family friend. He's like, hey, I'm doing this kickboxing, boxing, sparring thing at the club. It was Ottawa Fight Club. And I get there, and Aaron Ceballos, he's like, listen, I'm not the coach. He puts a timer out. It was a 2 or 3 minute timer. And you and I, Ryan, we're like, okay, cool. Are we kicking or are we kicking and punching? We agree. And then, boom, we go at it. And then the timer goes. You get the 1 minute break, circle the room, next person, like just boom, 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 boom.
Wow.
A bunch of you football players, cops, bouncers, criminals,
anybody,
cubicle dwellers, whatever. And at a
wow.
certain point, a few months, Aaron's like, hey, there's this amateur fight thing coming up. It's pretty easy. We can find you a good match. Yes, I want to do it. So it was a kickboxing fight. Steve Anderson, also RIP. I don't want to keep talking about all these dead fighters. But anyway, Steve Nasty Anderson was like him and Billy Blanks. You remember the Tybo Billy Blanks guy?
Yeah, I remember that.
Super famous. Black Belt Magazine did all this like stuff on him because he was like such a he was kind of the iconic he was like a couple steps above Billy. They fought a bunch, but he punk Billy, because he was mean, vicious, and violent back when you could do full contact karate like that. It was crazy. Great stuff to watch. So Steve Nasty Anderson, Google it and see some old YouTube videos. Anyway,
I'll do that.
He's putting the fight card on, and I'm going to fight this guy that owns this jiu-jitsu gym in the west end of Ottawa, and I was, can I swear?
Yes, of course. We've already done
I
it.
was scared fucking shitless. I didn't give a shit about getting hit and punched and kicked because of the twin. We used to, like, in the basement growing up, we talked a little bit about the boxing gloves and then dad taking them away because, like, bloody noses and black eyes and whatever. And we figured out that we could finish, which I only realized later in life, unfinished basement, Canadian basement, concrete floor, full mount, sitting on the other one's chest, grab him by the ears, bang, 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 bang. 2, 3, 4 years old. That's how you won the fight. Whoever could get the guy, right?
Holy cow.
So fuck it. I'm gonna rant here. You interrupt me. I got my first MRI for a pro fight in Australia. And I'm pretty, before every professional fight, you have to have a very serious bunch of medical tests, right? So the government regulates professional fighting worldwide. Yeah. And it's different everywhere, city. Anyway, so I'm getting my first MRI, and I'm trying to talk to the radiologist before I get the reading. And they don't want to tell me anything, but you'll start to see, or you kind of know me a bit. I'm kind of a good negotiator. I kind of like talking to people, and I'm like, dude, I want to know. Like, I'm not here because I'm worried about brain cancer. I need a test so I can fight. Can I fight? Yeah. General, non-specific thickening of the skull.
Whoa. That's crazy.
So, having, excuse me, asthma and laughing.
Don't mix.
No COVID.
So having your head bounce off a concrete floor.
Right.
Wow.
And that is what the conversations with a lot of doctors have been since. So I had a really good spinal surgeon there down in and around Washington, D.C. And yeah, there's been a lot of pictures of the head and neck in the last 20 years. So,
so you stepping in the ring and getting hit in the head is almost playing with fire, no?
No one would be interested in, no one in my personal life, my parents, my brother, my girlfriend, who hopefully can't hear this, who's in, a couple of bedrooms down right now. Yeah, nobody wants me to get hit in the head anymore. No. And to be quite frank, Ryan, I stopped getting hit in the head after the surgery. So it was July 27, 2017.
Okay.
And I have tested it a few times after I gave it a year and a half, took a lot of hard body shots, leg kicks, everything. Like, I went to war from neck down, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like playing non-contact football, right? Like, it's two different, like when you rattle the computer with a punch, there's a big difference between that or, blacking up an eye, lip, nose, all this kind of stuff, even like just not the concussive damage, which obviously, but even just soft tissue and cuts and bruises and that kind of stuff. Like, if you're really fighting someone or, sparring or all that kind of stuff, it's quite a bit easier to not get rattled if they're just hitting you. I'm pointing at your shoulders and chest, like it's. Yeah. Having said that, I had a meeting with the coach this morning, Peter Martell, who's got Titans MMA here in Halifax. And we're going to put me through a training camp as if I was going to fight for the next 8 weeks.
Wow. So you're looking at possibly getting back into fighting?
So here's the thing. Before the surgery, and I was going through, the surgery helped expedite I got married down in DC, and then got the diagnosis that I needed a titanium neck, basically. And the ex-wife, I was kind of like, she'd always dated kind of geeky, non-sporty guys, and I was the kickboxing champion, whatever, that she met, and I was her like second marriage, kind of like bucket list, kind of, I want to circle back to that guy. And when we went to the meeting with the surgeon and she heard what was going to happen, she just basically tapped out. I didn't know till several months later, but she was like, yeah, I don't want to, I'm not the guy I'm not the girl that's going to stick around and wipe this guy's ass in a wheelchair. So.
Wow. Yeah.
So I got it quick, no kids and that kind of stuff. So it sucks, but here we are.
Bigger and better things. Everything happens for a reason, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've learned that a few times in life.
Yes, sir. So yeah.
Who's the toughest opponent you ever faced?
So tough. That's an interesting question. Because so the math was like about with amateur, so boxing and kickboxing, professional and professional and amateur combined with both sports. So that's 4 buckets. We think it's about 132 to 134 fights total.
Holy crap.
So in the beginning with the amateur coaches, when I made the Canadian team very early on, perfect storm. It worked out. Right coaches, right time. Being a heavyweight, there's just less guys over 200 pounds than there are guys 165 pounds.
Yeah.
It's just a population thing, just a population curve. So it's if you can take the punishment that a heavyweight can hand out, right, the big heavy power, and whatever. So again, in the beginning, the coaches just kept ramping up the competition slightly above my head each time.
Yeah.
Put you in sink or swim and then keep going, which is really the best way to build a fighter, in my opinion, but it's tough. So, I mean, I fought some guys overseas in a bunch of world championships that were just, it was a blur early on in the career. So yeah, there's a lot of really good guys. Like I only had maybe 2 easy fights in over 100, so 130 hard fights and 2 easy ones.
Holy crap. So I guess you could say they were all tough opponents then, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to not call anybody out or not name any names, but
no.
There's a lot of names.
There's a lot of names, yeah, for sure.
And I definitely stood on the shoulders of giants, like amazing sparring partners, amazing fighters, amazing coaches, and it's just a lot of good people supporting me. It was, going from football at Canadian college level, there was like this really crazy intense competitiveness on the team because everybody's fighting each other for the starting position. And the defense hates the offense hates the defense, and the fat hoggies, which is what I was, offensive lineman, the defense hates them, and then the little fast guys that run and catch the ball, well, fuck you guys in your glory positions, and then they hate us, and you hoggies look terrible in the shower, get the fuck out of the locker room, and like, you little guys, you would be dead if we weren't here to, block you. Like it's this weird. So when I thought, okay, so this is weird. Now I'm going to go hang out with fighters. Like, how bad is the ego going to be on these guys compared to these football guys? And then I have some brilliant lifelong friends from the football teams and some brilliant men and some brilliant people I met. I don't want to malign them all like that, but just the social dynamics of that competitiveness within the team was really, really intense. Fast forward to kickboxing before boxing, it took me a while. I was like, okay, well, whatever. I'm going to be around a bunch of, I'm the greatest, Conor McGregor or Money Mayweather or, like these guys where you got this ego and I'm the man and fuck everybody. I'm the great. Nah, fuck those guys. It was martial artists, kids that had grown up with Taekwondo and karate and whatever, and like discipline and regimented. And it was the most amazing, wonderful, supportive. We trained together to fight alone. So it was all about supporting each other in every way possible. Like I remember like the really small girls on the team taking me to hot yoga to make me stretch out more and stuff. And I'm like, this would be a cakewalk. And it was not. And, that kind of thing. So what really cemented me into the sport was the honor of the people. Mm-hmm. It was,
So I was going to get into that with you in a bit, but I'll do it now. boxing is an individual sport.
Yeah.
So you get team sports, you get football players, you get, hockey, this and that. You can have an off night. You can kind of hide behind a defenseman a little bit, or maybe ride the pine a little bit, or whatever, get benched or whatever.
Yeah.
For you, boxing and kickboxing, it's an individual sport. I mean, you've got to be on the top of your game all the time and ready to go, or you could get hurt. You could get seriously hurt.
Yep.
How did you feel dealing with like those kind of pressures?
Excuse me, just a little burp there. So John McMahon was the first coach. He was an Ottawa military guy. He's got a company called Performance Mindworks, and then he's got the which is just goal setting, peak performance stuff for people. So it's largely targeted to the business community. Same product, slightly changed up, called Athletic Mindworks. And he was he used all of those tenets of that peak performance management with me, training with. So he would pick me up in his car 5:30 every morning. We'd go to a typical weight gym, do cardio weights, kind of whatever, that sort of stuff. Then we'd go off to work, and then we'd come back and do the kickboxing every night. Mm-hmm. And so he was teaching me all of these things, and we had journals, like sort of goal journals, daily things, and weekly, monthly, yearly checklists. Like, it was very regimented, very organized things, systems that I thrived in, but would never have even, like, when he started talking to me about it, like, think about this, is 1999, 2000. And my only conception of what he was trying to explain to me was, like, I was thinking about the orange guy, not this one, but the Anthony Robbins guy doing the infomercials in 98 and 97. And I'm like, get away from me with your voodoo stuff. Yeah. Whereas, 20 years later, I would sell that product, or Anthony Robbins, or, lots of companies do all this stuff, for their staff, and lots of athletes, sports psychologists, this sort of stuff. It just sort of, it's wonderful. Yeah. And that was what took a sort of an older athlete that really wasn't much of a great or successful or even a gifted athlete, and applying those principles and having a chin. Like, I was just blessed with, the general non-specific thickening of the skull and and grace under fire, right? If you get, I smash you in the face as hard as I can right now, Ryan, and you're just, and you don't care, it doesn't register your ability to move forward and have confidence, and just like the Rocky movie, the ability to get the line, get hit and keep moving forward. And that's basically it. So there was a lot of psychological sort of programming that just made it fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that almost sounds like a regiment maybe that they should, get into hockey players and stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure, at the NHL level and below, that there are definitely some people doing this for lots of athletes.
There are. Yeah, you're dealing with pro athletes, yeah. Yeah,
I think something like hockey it's had so much, government funding, regular, amateur, there's just so many years of the systems put into place that, I look at the fight sports and still think of them, and that they're in their naissance, or the beginning, their early part. Like, it's like Canada's a young country, Europe is, thousands of years older. I kind of feel like, hockey is very well sorted out, football to some extent as well. Yeah. Whereas fighting, there's still a lot of like Cro-Magnon sort of like BS bro science going on. Like, it's just starting. Yeah. And, the top of the food chain, they're great, but like the amateur boxers, guys, we're still putting on, rubber suits and losing weight and spitting in buckets, like it's to make weight classes, like just not good health and science sort of stuff, just gritting stuff out, which that was something I was good at. I figured I wanted to win, and I could do some of that stuff pretty easily. Just turn the brain off.
Yeah. So I didn't know this at the time. Terry Strawson actually just recently told me that back in 2015 in Nanaimo, Gordy Reset was supposed to be in a fight at 62 years old at the event in Nanaimo, and I didn't know who the opponent was that night. All I had heard that the fight was canceled. Gordy, I think there's maybe some health issues that had come up on fight day, and so they canceled the fight. I didn't realize
it was public. I mean, I can speak to what those health issues are if you want.
Okay, but I didn't realize before we go there that you were the opponent that night.
Yes.
So how did it feel potentially stepping into the ring with a 62-year-old man who probably hadn't fought in at least a decade or two, or whatever the time was? I mean, how do you prepare for that? To know that maybe potentially you could kill this man. You could hurt him.
Yep. Great question. Great question. So I remember Terry calling me, and I just answered the phone. I'm like, Terry, I had just bought a store. I was working stupid amount of hours, not sleeping, not eating right, not training. I said, Terry, I love you, man. I appreciate the phone call. I have no idea what fight you're calling me for. I'm on the couch, and I don't know if you know the expression, but I'm like, I'm not getting off the couch to train for a fight it was like 3 weeks or 6. It was like very short time frame, like less than a month. Could have been 2 weeks. I don't know. And he's like, well, actually, Sandy, it's funny you say that. It's a fight that I'm not necessarily excited about promoting, but I'm interested in presenting it to you to see if you would be. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. I'm like, he's how old? And I'm no kid. I'm 47 today. So when do you have the box rec on there or the date? Like, what was that?
That was 2015.
Thank you. Okay, so it was 2015. So 5 years ago. So it's 42. So not a kid, out of shape. And I was like, and I said, well, it's whatever. And Terry's a pretty good salesman. He's got that great, is it a Liverpool accent? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think he's from Liverpool, yeah.
And anyway, so he charmed me a little bit on the phone. I said, okay, well, listen, I'll call you back. And I got online and I kind of looked and I realized that Gordy was top of the food chain back in his day.
Yes.
And I was like,
very top of the food chain.
Yeah. You can say more than I can if you want to. If naming some of the fighters he fought and that sort of stuff, like he was the man. It's unfortunate that he didn't do better financially. I don't even know what happened. Like, I don't know very well, but
yeah, honestly, I don't know his history too much either. I think that he actually worked in the mill in Port Alberni. That's where I am right now. And I don't want to get into how it started, but I think he just basically started kicking ass and started taking names and then started amateur and got into some pro fights, I think. No.
He became, I can pull his box rec up if you want. He became, he would be arguably one of the top 3 or 4 best professional boxers ever out of Canada. Like George Chavallo kind of level, who fought that sort of stuff. Like he was literally the top of the food chain. And then I had to convince myself, okay, this is a no-win fight for me. If I beat him up, well, I beat up a guy 20 years older than me in his 60s. So he's almost my father's age. Fuck, no, thank you. And he's a big puncher, and power is what you go. Like, he's massive knockout power. And I was like, okay, or I'd never been knocked out. I've only been dropped once in sparring fights or anything, ever once. Unfortunately, it was in the Bell Center in Montreal on pay-per-view. But anyway, couple hits the back of the head from Eric Barak, who is anyway, we can get into that at some point, but whatever. And I was like, yeah, well, or I can get knocked out cold by a 60-some-year-old man. I'm like, So, but I wanted to fight. So it was convincing myself that I could fight in a way. I mean, you don't very often go into a fight, or I didn't, with an opponent mentality. The goal is to be, I'm going to win. And if you're getting to the ring with anything less, really it's time to not be in the ring.
Right.
Yeah. I came close to knocking a guy out, but there was a French guy I fought in Moncton. It just came up in my Facebook memories a couple of days ago. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but I remember we had a really good fight, and I beat him on points, and it was a good. He was quite. And after the fight, he's like, Sandy, I played hockey. He was an enforcer in hockey, big name French guy from like around Moncton, but outside a small town there. Wow, he's an interesting fella. Anyway, and he said, you can play hockey, you can play basketball, you can't play fight, you can't play boxing.
No.
And I was like, and that was disrupting to me because I really appreciated him saying that. Then it made me realize that although I had taken my kickboxing career so incredibly seriously, I had ended up as an opponent in the B side, or meant to lose in a boxing fight too many times, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times before I stopped doing that, and made sure that I was in at least I was only like a 10 or 20% underdog,
Right, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now we're looking at Mike Tyson, who's 53 years old. Evander Holyfield's 57 years old. Yep. What do you think about their potential comebacks? And I mean, where could this kind of stuff go? I mean, so, they fight, let's just say that they have their fight, whatever happens, whatever. All of a sudden now I've seen rumors kind of float around about Tyson Fury wants to fight Mike Tyson. Yep. So what the hell would happen if Mike Tyson beats Tyson Fury? Like, are we talking Mike Tyson's now challenging for belts? Where's that going to go?
So great question. And so I was actually a paid sparring partner in Tyson Fury's fight camp when he was fighting Steve USS Cunningham. Wow. Fought him in New York in 2012-ish, maybe 2013. You can Google it or whatever. He was phenomenal, and I, to be quite frank, I was coming off the couch again, and I didn't give him much of a look, and I ended up getting in really good shape during that camp as the prime sparring partner for the pro debut of his first cousin, Huey Lewis Fury.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Huey Lewis Fury. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Lewis part, that's the ring name, but he's Huey Fury.
Yeah.
It was Huey's father, Peter Fury, and which was the uncle of Tyson Fury, was the trainer. As these things happen, they've parted ways, but I believe Peter and his son Huey are still together. Peter was quite a fantastic coach. They're the Travelers, kind of like the Pikeys from that movie Snatch. Like that's their
okay. Yeah.
Very interesting. The traveling culture, and that's how they ended up in Ottawa for a fight camp. I think the uncle liked to move them to different milieus around the world and just take them completely away from whatever and plunk them in the middle of. So Ottawa was pretty close to New York as far as time frames and time zones and all that kind of stuff. So shout out to Eric Belanger from final round in Ottawa for giving me that opportunity. And my coach at the time there was Naren Fiakowski, who owns N1, like N-1 Muay Thai Academy in Ottawa. So he was my coach for that fight. And Eric's a good guy, very, very big name in the Canadian boxing sort of coaching scene. Good guy.
Nice.
Great guys.
So do you think Mike Tyson could upset Tyson Fury, or not a hope in hell?
So I actually had to discipline myself. The 2 times Mike Tyson fought Holyfield back in the day, I lived with an amateur boxer, and we never really got into this, but the progression from beating up my twin brother and playing some sports and stuff, I lived with an amateur boxer in January of '94, and we used to do quite a bit of fighting. It was literally just bag of gloves on the front lawn in a shitty part of downtown Ottawa, and it was brutal. Alcohol, beer, punching each other like until 3 and 4 in the morning, sparring drunks coming home from the bar. Like, it was fun. But he turned me, so Peter Redekop was my friend and the amateur boxer, turned me into some weird cultish sort of follower of Mike Tyson. Like, I loved this guy, like just watching his, like he is what a boxer should be. You have to come, like every once in a while I had some success and I had some great fights and I got to fight all over the planet. People would ask me certain questions, interviews, or just a friend or something. And I was like, why you like Mike Tyson? I'm like, cause man, I grew up in the East End of Orleans and there was food in the table and on the fridge and my parents worked. I didn't come up in the Bronx selling drugs at 13 years old to help my mom pay rent. Like, we're not the same person. We didn't live the same life. Tyson is an animal. He's a physical specimen. He comes from the right mindset. Amateur boxing is a sport. Professional boxing, I am paid to hurt you, Ryan. I sign a contract to damage you as quickly and as efficiently as possible, so you can't do that to me.
That's right.
We paid to fucking hurt each other. And ideally, the goal is to not hurt yourself as much, right? It's a very violent sport, clearly. And I used to tell people I had owned a club for a while. I trained lots of people, kids, whatever, girls, lots. At the amateur level, it's a sport and it's very well controlled. At the professional level, it is violence, period.
Yeah, for sure it is.
Mike Tyson is a perfect violent machine.
Yeah.
And he is going to hurt someone. I think they're going to give him a warm-up fight. He's not going to fight Holyfield, and he's not going to fight Fury first. They're going to give him a tomato can, like when he came out of jail and he fucked out
jail.
Peter McNeely.
Yeah, I remember that fight.
Right. I mean, just a punching bag, right?
Yeah.
People, Sandy, would you fight Tyson? I would mortgage everything I have in my life and bet on the money I would make on the sponsorship of being the guy and the social media presence that I would make by being the guy that's fighting Mike Tyson. Am I going to lose? Absolutely. Am I going to get beat up? Absolutely. But I'm going to throw some punches and make some money. I don't think that they're going to give Mike Tyson, so if you will say Fury, he's a world champion. The governments that sanction boxing, Vegas, California, they are not going to give Mike Tyson a professional boxing license. They're not going to give Evander Holyfield a professional boxing license. So this is why they're talking about charity 3-round matches. The minimum professional boxing match has to be 4 rounds. They're going to do you and I can be, we can do a charity boxing match right now. Right?
I'm coming to Halifax. Let's go.
Come on in. Now we need somebody to care and want to pay us, because I'm not doing it for free. And
no, me neither.
The charity has to make some money.
Yeah.
What do you weigh?
Right now, 185.
Perfect. Let's fight.
Okay. I'm down. Well, that's the thing too. I mean, they're not going to give these guys licenses to fight when, they're putting their ass on the line, right? Somebody gets hurt, somebody dies, somebody has a heart attack or whatever. Yep. And it's just,
I think that's the big nuance that that's the detail. You know it, I know it, but I think that's the piece. If anybody's paying attention in this podcast, it's kind of like bare knuckle boxing. Like it's an unlicensed boxing match, but there'll be ambulances and doctors and everybody will be fine. I think Tyson is going to hurt the first person badly, and I really want him to beat Holyfield. The problem is a couple of people, I can't remember who he fought just before Holyfield, but pushing Mike Tyson, getting right in his face, smothering, hugging, and boring fight him, you can beat him. If you give him any room to move and throw punches, you're done. So that's it. So if he has a team that can get him to a point where he can chess match past that, and I've been in situations like that in fights where I know someone's going to hug and smother. So I would literally, I was learning the last few fights to be a bit dirtier, because I had so much amateur experience, kickboxing and boxing blended, that I didn't fight like a dirty professional boxer. And there's a few guys like Rob Nichols I had a really good fight with. And I remember telling him after, like, hey dude, I don't really care who won or not, but you're the cleanest fighter I've ever fought. Like, he just followed all the amateur rules. There's like, you can hit people with shoulders and elbows and forearms and lace them with your gloves and do a lot of really dirty stuff. When I'm getting paid to fight and hurt you before you make me unconscious or hurt me. I mean, I hate to say these things, but yeah, that's it. So the pro games and the people that can do that sort of stuff using MMA moves and arm drags and all kinds of stuff, there's a lot of dirty stuff that I didn't really understand or know, and I still don't really want to do. But it's kind of like, you and I get in I bring a knife to a gunfight. Yeah. It's not good.
No, it's not good. It's not good at all.
Yep.
So the sport of boxing almost ends up being like a 6 degrees of separation, so to speak.
Yes.
When you start mapping out a fighter's career, an example of this would be how you fought Ken Frank twice. You lost both unanimous decisions. A couple months after you fought Frank, he fights Andy Ruiz Jr.
Yep.
Who in 2019 became the heavyweight champion of the world after beating Anthony Joshua.
Yep.
Do you start paying attention to this kind of stuff? Like, does it become like, this guy's a ladder to this guy, I beat this guy? Do you go back in your career and say, hey, if I'd beaten this guy, I could have fought that guy? I mean, potentially it could have been you fighting Andy Ruiz Jr. Could it not have been? I mean,
I could have very easily got that same phone call that Ken got. So, you know what? Ryan, I appreciate that question, because I don't know, maybe, the heat we're dragging this conversation, and I'm saying some of the negatives and this sort of stuff, but I absolutely loved the opportunities I had, and the ability to test myself all over the planet throughout my career has been wonderful. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I forgot about this, but I'm going to tell somebody on a bar stool tomorrow that I fought the guy that got beat up by Andy Ruiz,
Yeah, no, and that's crazy, right? I mean, when you think about it, it's pretty crazy,
Yeah. And Ken Frank, by the way, he may end up listening to this podcast. Lovely, lovely guy. And he comes out, he's done now, he's got some nasal surgery, so he's not allowed to fight anymore. He comes out, he's a native Canadian fella, and he came out with a robe, one tough Indian.
And, that's awesome.
Not politically correct, but it couldn't be more apt. That guy had a cement head. I hit him so hard. I
put everything you had in it.
Bruised my knuckles, my thumb, like everything. I hit him so hard so many times, and he didn't care.
Wow. Just no flinching.
Just a tank. It was like punching a brick wall.
Ouch. That's crazy. Yep. Did you have any kind of problems in your career staying disciplined? Did you kind of like venture off into,
Yeah. So the kickboxing and so John McMahon transferred me so he was one of the coaches for the Canadian team. The guy Mazamel Nawaz, or Maz, most people know him. He's got a complicated name for some people. Maz, he runs Kickboxing Canada. Wacko is the big Glory Kickboxing for Canada, that sort of stuff now.
Yeah.
And he ran and still continues to run the Canadian amateur kickboxing team. He had a side team too, where he could use. It was a pro-am development team, so he had a team called Team Abu Zaid Taz, but anyway, his first son. Your father of. Abu means father of, and his first son was named as Zaid, so Team Abu Zaid. And so I got drafted into that team after being on the Canadian team pretty quickly, and that's how I ended up going pro in kickboxing. I started telling stories and I forget the question, Ryan.
That's okay. I asked, how hard was it for you to stay disciplined in your career?
So with Maz was very old school in the sense, like, we talked about this earlier, the boxers, the kickboxers, they want to, how low can we get your weight? Like, Ryan, you're 185. Okay, I'm an old school boxing coach. Okay, you're going to fight at 145. You're going to diet down and then dehydrate, or maybe 155 or 161.
Yeah.
Like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's the worst part of the sport, and it was the best part of making me opportunities. So kickboxing is slightly different. There's different weight classes for different organizations, right? So the weight classes for the UFC or MMA are different than boxing.
Yeah.
Boxing's lots. UFC has a very few. But kickboxing, if you own a kickboxing organization and I own the ABC one and you own the ABD one, maybe your heavyweight was 220 pounds. Maybe mine 240. Next guy's 245. So I ended up having to move my weight around a lot as I got to top level amateur and then the professional fight. So I fought my first amateur fight at 285 pounds, and I had to make weight in Germany at 183.2 on a scale. I think I said that earlier. It was a kilogram fight. So, and it wasn't 285 down to 183. It was 285 down to 183, up to 195, up to 220, up to 240, down to 205 again, down to 195, back up to 210. Like, it was, so it was such an, it's a great question. There's an arc of the excitement and the big night and the event, and then there's a massive, let's call it, depression after. And that sometimes I had to gain weight for another fight coming up soon, and sometimes I had to lose weight. But there was just like an emotional, you're peaking physically, mentally, emotionally, And there was always a crash, and dealing with those crashes after the events is, I would say, is, for me, that was the biggest problem. And, eventually the light is that it was a great learning experience for me, about learning about daily or, yearly, monthly discipline, as opposed to like going hard for 2 or 3 months to get ready and then kind of just coasting or just taking a month off and, being on the couch and eating crappy food or drinking some beers or whatever, It was a great question, and that's a very honest answer.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I appreciate honest answers for sure. That's what this podcast is all about, being honest. So you put your life on the line every time you stepped in a ring. Did you ever have any fears on fight day that you were going to could potentially get your ass kicked or could die or, anything like that? Or
like what I was talking about with the peak performance stuff, it was great and helped. There was a lot of stuff about managing nerves. I remember some slightly. So the answer is yes, but the majority of the time the answer was no. So I'll tell you about, I fought Nick Penner, who ended up in the UFC. I was his stepping stone for the UFC, and he beat the shit out of me. He kicked my legs so hard, inside, outside of both legs. Edmonton, I remember walking through, you ever have a sprained ankle or bust up knee, you had a bad accident. If you've got one leg that's kind of messed up, you've got another leg that's good, so you're limping, you're fine. When both legs are totally destroyed and you're walking and you trip a little bit and you try to use the other leg to, anyway, I fell literally face down in the Edmonton airport trying to make my flight the next day, just walking because both legs didn't work. So
holy crap.
That was a beating that was one of the few times that I mentally, I had taken a bunch of time off, and this, it was, I shouldn't have taken that fight.
Wow. Yeah. And you learned that lesson hard.
Yeah. And Nick and I, he's a real thought leader out there in the world, and a really wonderful gentleman and a person. And we've become, mostly Facebook, but we have some pretty deep conversations, or have had. And I'm glad that we shared that experience in the ring. I actually had to beg him to fight me for a couple of years. What happened was I had left Ontario to buy my first retail store in Kamloops. And this is about 2006, I guess. And this is when the UFC was getting real big. Bonner Griffin had the big fight. That's what really exploded the UFC. Yep. I took a few months off. I said I got offered a K1 contract over in Japan, and I turned it down because I was on the path for, like my father said, like, when are you going to give up this kickboxing nonsense and focus on your career? So I turned down, the NHL of kickboxing contract to continue along my day job, sort of, my real life goals outside of sport. And then when I tried to get back to a kickboxing fight, the money was getting sucked out of it, and anybody that could, throw some head kicks and stuff, they were getting into MMA.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I didn't want to learn all the ground stuff at that point in my life, and I was very focused on the retail stores and the health supplements and that sort of life. And unfortunately, that's how I got into professional boxing. Is I had 6 or 8 fights booked in over a year, and people were like, oh, Sandy Pembroke, he used to be this guy, fought here, hasn't fought in a year, and he's 35 years oldish now, and he's kind of out of shape, and da-da-da. So all these guys said, yeah, I'll take it. Sign on the dotted line, 20-year-old champions. And then they kind of, there was no real book of record. Like there's no Sherdog or BoxRec for kickboxing, like no legitimate sort of online sort of worldwide. So kickboxing, you kind of get away with a bit of lying. Anyway, so people would book and agree to fight me professionally. And then they would find out through the grapevine, like, yeah, listen, you're not going to knock Sandy Pembroke out. He's got the chin. And he's a pressure fighter, and it's not a good fight. So then I had 6 or 8 fights cancel over a year, and then finally said, you want to take this boxing fight? And I took a boxing fight. Actually, Manny Sobral gave me a boxing fight against Jamie Walton at the casino there in Vancouver. And that was I think that was my first professional boxing fight. Yeah.
Huh. So what's more important to you, to be respected or feared as a fighter?
You know what? I think going forward, or if I was coaching somebody, I would want them to be feared. Personally, for whatever reasons, I had some coaches basically say, hey, Sandy, stop trying to be everybody's friend at the weigh-ins and on fight week and that sort of stuff. Can you just get in the hotel room and kind of be the fear? Yeah. And it took me quite a while to learn that, because I don't know, I liked it. This is a hobby. This was fun. Like, I grew up punching the shit out of and knocking the head off the ground. My twin brothers, like, violence and headbangs meant love to me, right? It was just fun, right? It wasn't, I didn't look at it early in my career about putting my life on the line. I was like, hey, let's get in there and rock and roll. Let's have some fun.
Let's do this. Yeah, for sure. I think the put my life on the line kind of thoughts wouldn't come in until you probably got more mature, right? Gone into the 100%. Grew up a little bit, right? Kind of realized where things could go. So
yeah, well, the third of my neck is titanium now. It's there was some real life flashing moments.
And I'm sure you weren't thinking, let's go out and do this and do that, and this is going to be the outcome, right? And it was the outcome. Yeah, it's not good. Is there anything you would have done differently in your career?
Kind of that guy, Julian Collette. I was talking about the guy that said I fought him in Moncton when I decided I was in. I'm going to go off on tangent here, and with apologies. It's been a long week. That you can't play boxing, right?
No.
And I was playing boxing for a while. I was literally the second time I was in the middle of a fight in the Bell Center. And there's no time in the middle of a round to have any thought. Like, what I loved about this is I've got very fast moving brain. Some people might say ADD or ADHD. I don't care. It moves very fast. So for me to be in a point where I'm zen, where like I'm just focused on fighting, scuba diving. There's a couple of things that are so scary and like that you have to be fully there. There's no time for anything else, right? So like someone's swinging hammers trying to make me unconscious. Yeah. And I remember there was like just a pause in action, maybe someone, and I was just sitting there. It's probably my, 6th, 7th, 8th professional boxing fight at that time. And I kind of stepped back and, looking up at the cameras, and I'm like, you know what, Sandy, for a professional boxer, you're a pretty good kickboxer.
Really?
Yeah, literally that was a thought in my head.
Right in the middle of the fight.
Right in the middle of the fight. It was
wow.
And I was like, and then I never took another fight unprepared after that. That was like, okay, you need to check yourself before you riggedy wreck yourself. And it was humbling, and I think at the end of the day, that's what kept me fighting all along, is like every single time it's scary as fuck, and trying to fight those fears and battle that stuff before the fight, training for the fight, in the locker room, at the weigh-in, the night before, trying to sleep the night before you're going to war. Yeah, man, it's just been about trying to get better at like managing my brain and my emotions and my physicality. Like it's a neat thing.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about Mike Tyson.
Yep.
Do you think my question was going to be, was there a particular fighter that you kind of crafted your style after? And I kind of picked up maybe it might have been Mike Tyson, but I'll take your answer. And so who was it?
So he was certainly the inspiration, and like I think we're not allowed to say spirit animal anymore because that's disrespectful to the indigenous people and that sort of stuff. I just learned that this year or last year, but he was like what I felt in my heart. But to be quite frank, no, it was more about just trying to be a better version of me and execute on the things that the coaches had me working on for that fight. So yeah, like I remember watching Gladiator before my first big fight overseas, amateur world championships in Greece, and like watching like Russell Crowe, he bends down before his fight and he like touches the dirt, and he picks it up in his hands and did that.
Yeah.
I went and did that outside the venue in like a hotel in Greece where we were fighting, and it just felt right. Like I just needed something to like ground myself. The 3 rings in there of violence, and just watching like all my Canadian friends get knocked the fuck out by the Kazakhstans and the Russians, and just going, fuck, thank God I'm fighting this Irish guy. No disrespect to Irish dudes, but man, the Russians had some killers. And back then, because the kickboxing was like basketball, you could fight professional one weekend and amateur the next weekend. And the top level amateurs you're seeing in the world championship circuits, they were monsters. They were pros, right? Yeah. And a lot of them were professional in the sense that they would, like specifically the Russians or the Kazakhstans, they were on a government salary to train and full time, and I'm here working a day job or opening up a retail store.
try to keep yourself going. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to. I didn't have big spending habits a lot of my life where I'd save some money and take a month off work and train really hard and like not work for a month for a couple of big fights, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I didn't though. I mean, that wasn't for 100 of them. That was for probably 10 of them,
Yeah. So what's next for Sandy Pembroke? I mean, could we potentially see you back in the ring again, or?
Yeah. So here's the thing. No one in my personal life, my family, my girlfriend wants to see that, but some friends and the coaches I'm working with here, I really like to do 3 fights.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've already talked, and I said if any of those fights are on the West Coast, I want to walk you out to the ring. I got to be there.
Sold. Done.
That'd be an amazing experience for me. I just like to be in on it. Yeah, it'd be cool. Any kind of timeline at all, or?
As a marketing guy and with some means later in my career, I've got some pretty nice walkout gear for the people that want to do that. So
I'm in. Yeah, I'm in.
Sweet. So I had a chat with Peter Martell of Titans MMA. There's a Titans actually out on the island, and there's a Titans out here on the East Coast. So it's Titans MMA Halifax, not affiliated, just 2 people with the same. And Peter Martell is fantastic. He's got a UFC guy. He's got an M1 Global guy. He's got a bunch, like for the East Coast. He's the only show. Like he's the biggest show east of Montreal. So
okay,
we had another chat. He's like, Sandy, if you really want to do this, I need to see you in shape. Just show me you in shape, and then we'll talk about a fight. So we're 6 weeks away from booking a fight, which could be 4 to 6 weeks after that.
Holy crap! Yeah. And then I guess too, unfortunately, this COVID stuff may or may not get. Well, Maybe not. I mean, I could still walk you out to the ring and we could fight with no fans, I guess. If that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, you and I were talking on Facebook, I think, a few times. I got pretty excited for that first UFC card back and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's some weird, eerie stuff. Now, for some of the trials for the Canadian team, I've done that where the only people in the room were other Canadians trying to get on the team as well, and then the coaches and the refs, and then one or two government officials. So I've been in some weird spots where I've done some fighting where there's nobody else or very little or no crowd, and had some legit fights, like two heavyweight Canadians, like who's going to be the guy going over to wherever to represent Canada. We're going over to Europe, or South Africa was one of my favorite places ever to fight. Strongly recommend, period. Anybody go visit South Africa. Message me, and Sandy Pembroke on any one of the you can find me online. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what I'm there. Come say hi. You can vouch for the fact that I'm pretty social online.
I can vouch for that. Yeah. You're a pretty nice guy. Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
You're good. Yeah. So what advice would you have for a young person getting into a contact sport?
How young?
Well, mid-teens. I mean, when things could potentially start getting serious about maybe a potential career, whatever.
So I was on the board of directors for Kickboxing Ontario when we officially legalized amateur full contact kickboxing several years ago. And what we were doing then is trying to recruit athletes from other sports. And so my very basic advice to anybody, if you can put your kid into gymnastics early, when they're kids, for the first few years, it just develops all the right things for muscular strength, ligature, flexibility, this sort of stuff. And so from that point, whatever sport you're going to play, gymnastics. And then I really love putting kids and suggesting kids into some type of good traditional martial arts, karate, taekwondo. And then as they get, with UFC, MMA, that sort of stuff, wrestling is a real serious grind. I would just don't buy into if you can see your abs, don't cut 15 pounds of weight from there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't weight cut.
No.
Dehydration and athletic activity, stop that. Everybody stop that. And so you've got the bases we just talked about. Now it comes down to using your parents and your friends and family to find out what is the gym that's got some really good reputations or some good success. It's like anything, you want to go to a car dealership to get a car. What's the track record? What's the reputation in that community of the veracity, the honesty, of that car dealership, right? It's same, you use your brain, use your network, do
your homework.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Exactly. Right.
Yes, sir.
Do your homework.
Yes, sir. Do your homework. All right. So we're getting near the end of our show with Sandy Pembroke. So we're going to get into something that I like to call quick hits, which are some brief, Sandy, one-word answers, if we can do that. It's your first job that you had.
McDonald's.
Nice. First car you bought?
I bought, my dad had a Dodge 600, which was a souped-up K car, and it talked to you. Your door is ajar. Your windshield fluid is low. Wait, one word, Dodge 600.
Okay. That's funny. So my first car was a K car, and we'll get back to that in a second here.
Good.
Favorite music artist?
Michael Stipe, REM was the band that informed my life, but we could go crazy from there. I love music.
We can get back into that too. Shower or bath?
Do I really have to pick one?
You got to pick one.
If nothing else matters, Epsom salts and baths and some candles and maybe my iPad and some some fights or a romantic comedy.
That's good enough for me. What scares you the most?
Whew. I want to stop relearning the things I've already learned.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, and unfortunately, history repeats itself until we learn the lesson involved, right? And I echo that thought. Yeah, I mean, there's some things I've done or experiences I've had. I'd rather not have them again. So, yeah.
Hopefully we're both there, my brother.
Hopefully. Well, things can only go up, right? So
absolutely.
So my first car being a K car, I had mine for probably 2 or 3 months, and I remember going down to Nanaimo to visit my sister, and we're gonna go down and buy Canuck tickets. So I pulled a bunch of buddies in the car. I think there was like 6 or 8 of us. And those cars are notorious for having terrible suspensions, just being bowed out, right?
Yes.
So by the time I got that car to Nanaimo, I shot the piston through the block.
Oh.
Right? So that thing was just hammering away. She fucking spilt like oil everywhere. I popped the hood and there's like oil everywhere. It was just a fucking mess, right? I was an experienced young driver, didn't know what the hell I was doing, didn't know anything about cars. So my sister had just gotten off work. We were stopped at the mall, and she's like, well, you're giving me a ride home, right? And I said, well, I can't. My car is fucked. Like, this ain't good. She's like, no, you're giving me a ride home. So I drove that fucking car with the piston through the block with no power from one end of Nanaimo to the other to take my sister home. Like, what the hell, right? Anyways, I ended up trading that car in. I got a 91 Cavalier out of the deal, and I think I probably paid $1,500.
Yep.
It was 84K car. It was blue, and RIP'd that day. Yeah.
Good story, my man.
All right, Sandy. So I appreciate your time with me.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been fun. Learned a lot, and thanks for doing it with us.
I hope it was good. I feel like you and I were kind of just having a chat, and you asked me to think about some things I hadn't thought about in a long time, and I really appreciate that. Like, for me, you took me for a stroll down memory lane and made me really think about what are some of the lessons I learned and, what's next in life. I hope it resonated with some people. I'm feeling a bit, I hope it does.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't know what my viewership's like. I mean, I've got a bit of an idea. It's not huge. Doesn't mean that in some time it might not get huge, and I'm looking back down and, people are rewatching these or whatever. Basically, right now I'm doing this for me and for my experience with Sandy Pembroke or my experience with Don Andrews. And if people want to watch it, great. If not, I don't care. Honestly, it is what it is. So,
dude, that's it's a certain amount of self-confidence that I'm excited that you said that exactly like that. And I think you also know I own a marketing company. So if after you send me this and I look at it and watch it and I don't feel like I totally sounded like an idiot, we'll get a few thousand views pretty quick.
No, I appreciate that, man. That's huge. Yeah, and and who knows where this goes, right? Who knows? So again, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate you coming on as my guest.
Thank you for joining us this week on this episode of Third and One. Please remember to subscribe, leave a review, or share this show.